So I reviewed that Madam and Her Madam video I just posted for you. Um, it's boring, huh? Well, it's slow paced. It's not an interactive back and forth, which I'm used to. All right. Anyway, so I've uploaded the essay, the sample essay that I told you I wrote, an essay about the poem Madam and Her Madam, and I want to talk a little bit about it here. Um, but you never know; it might have a virus on it. So there it is. There's my essay. All right. Anyway, ha ha ha. All right. So um, if you've printed out this essay, or if you have it somewhere showing, you can see that um, again, what I did was my essay responded to the assigned question, which was, what does Hughes's Madam and Her Madam suggest about economic inequality? And as you know, the way I assign topics for works of literature like this is that I give you a question, and if you turn that question around um, and answer it thoughtfully, it could be your thesis statement. So the question again, what does Hughes's Madam and Her Madam suggest about economic inequality? And the thesis at the end of the intro paragraph says, in Madam and Her Madam, Hughes shows that economic inequality can entail other, more subtle inequalities between people. All right, so there's the claim that I'm making. This poem shows that the obvious economic inequality involves other kinds of inequality. Well, as I said before in the other video, when I was thinking about and discussing the poem, we kind of went stanza by stanza. We went in order through the poem, which I suggested is usually not a very good way to organize a discussion of a poem or a story, because often you'll end up just retelling the plot, which is not what the reader is going to be interested in. The reader is going to be more interested in deeper meanings, what's going on in the subtext, what kinds of patterns can be seen in the poem, how to think about the poem the way that the poet did, and see um, what sorts of what sorts of things are in the poem that are not immediately obvious on the surface, right? So, meanings below, uh, meanings beyond the surface meaning. All right, yeah, whatever. So if you look at this essay, I've got that thesis there in the opening paragraph, and then each of these paragraphs has a topic sentence and a topic that relates to this question of inequality in addition to economic inequality. Right? So the first body paragraph, I would say that the thesis is actually the third sentence in, because I needed to say a couple of things before I set it up. The thesis, or I'm sorry, the topic sentence for this paragraph is, the long list of domestic chores has several false endings, which emphasizes Alberta's perception that the work is unending. All right? So here we have a paragraph that's about how the poem depicts the work as being unending. And so this one paragraph gathers up all the evidence from anywhere in the poem that's about that. It's not necessarily going in order. It's talking about the endlessness of her work. Body paragraph number 2. The opening line is the topic sentence here. What lies behind the difference in the two characters' workload, of course, is the difference in their socioeconomic status, their wealth, right? So this paragraph talks about all the different evidence that shows them to be more or less wealthy or poor, right? Kind of the economic comparison between them. And it takes, again, It doesn't go in order through the poem. It's taking evidence from anywhere it exists in the poem. Any evidence that shows economic inequality goes into this paragraph, right? The poem is not first about her daily chores and then about economic inequality. Both of those are kind of everywhere in the poem. Number three, body paragraph number three. I think this has two sentences that could be considered the topic sentences. One is 5 lines down, 4 lines down. It says, no, 5 lines down. They perceive their situation differently and so are living very different reality, a very different reality. On page 2, the second line says, more importantly, the poem reveals a difference in the way that the two women perceive their relationship. So both of those sentences are kind of saying the same thing, that the two women are kind of living in a different reality. Finally, the concluding paragraph does not say, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, and restate the thesis and the topic sentences, because that's kind of a lame, boring, high school kind of essay. What it does is it's another body paragraph, really, that has an important point to make that kind of wraps everything up. And the topic sentence is the very first one. In spite of the clear social inequality between these two women, though, Hughes tries to point out their fundamental similarities. So the essay was about how there's economic inequalities between them that entail other inequalities. But at the end, I point out that there's also this kind of equality between them. They're both called Madam and her Madam. And as I said at the end of the last video, if that last line of the poem where she says, I'll be dogged if I love you, if that's something that got her fired, then the poem is about the homeowner's power. But if it's about Madam quitting, then the poem is about her power, because she's the one who's in control of the situation. She's withdrawing her labor and reasserting her dignity. So again, the poem really is about two women who are fundamentally just two human beings, but one of them happens to have more money than the other, and that's what kind of defines their identity socially. But underneath, there's inequality, right? There it is. I hope that's helpful. The next video you're going to see is on Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart, and I'll put that one up tomorrow, Tuesday. Hopefully early in the morning, but more likely at the end of the day. I have to move my in-laws from one apartment into assisted living, so it's going to be a busy day. See you later.